How, if at all, has the role changed after support moved away from support global groups?
Maybe before I answer the actual question, very quick explanation of what support global groups are, in case someone from outside of support is watching these. That was the way we had organized the support team for, I think, most of my tenure. We had like about 20 people per global group and 5 to 7 people from each of the 3 major regions, with the idea being that each of these SGGs, support global groups, could tackle all regions on their own, would not need any other groups, has subject matter experts, levels of seniority that are kind of the same in each of the groups. And then we routed ticket volume accordingly so that each group had a smaller ticket queue. That allowed us, for example, experimenting process changes in smaller groups, had some benefits, had some drawbacks. I think one of the main drawbacks was that it kind of masked or hid the needs of individual regions, because they do work differently culture-wise and volume-wise. It's just different. And so, we're now removed global groups, the concept, and are much more region focused. And so with all that in mind, the staff support engineer role, I don't think has changed much after we disbanded support global groups. Main reason being, as a staff SE, you already were not part of the global group. That is pretty much the biggest structural change after the promotion, was that you were moved out of the global group system, which makes sense, right? Because now your focus is whole team, cross-regional, cross-departmental even, and so you shouldn't be focused on just a subset of the support engineer team. But that also, of course, means that it didn't have much of an impact now that these smaller compartments within support don't exist anymore. I will say it had probably an effect especially for growing into the role, because we're finding redefining a lot of things, right? That is a big change, and we had that old system for quite some time. So especially cross-regional collaboration within support is changing, and that is an area where, as a staff support engineer, you are just on your own finding out how does that work now? How do you fit into all that? But all that is changing a lot because of the disbanding of support global groups. So I think that definitely had some impact, but not necessarily on what the role will look like long term. That is more, I think, for the people who are onboarding into the role currently as this happens.
Hi, Cynthia. So the staff role isn't about picking up, lots of new tickets in the same way as intermediate and senior and so on. So I don't really feel that the role has changed that much by the move away from support global groups. I am the convener of the database pod, and I think the role of pods is likely to increase. So I think there'll be a change there. And the queues are definitely different. When I do work in the queues, it's very different now. It's much easier to see what needs working on. It's often just a single screen of tickets, which is great.
I am so curious to hear how the other staff SEs respond to this question. I mention that because the timing of SGGs going away and how I approach staff was a little bit different. So at the time that I found out about my promotion to staff support engineer being successful, there was a support engineer manager position open. And so the interim period that I spent as manager overlapped really well with the time from promotions are complete to SGGs go away. So my transition to staff had SGGs are gone as a part of it sort of baked in. So as I transition to staff, it's been with that in mind. And it means we're thinking more about region and less about SGG. And that has made a lot of sense anyway. I mentioned this in the conversation that we did about the path to staff, but the most frustrating thing about putting together my staff support engineer document is all of the SGG related things that I didn't make sense to include in the document because at best, those things impacted 1/5 of the team. And at the staff level, you should be thinking about impacting as much of the team as possible. So it was frustrating to take burger emoji related things off of my document. So I'm so curious to hear how that change impacts things for other staff support engineers.